In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your starter located on the passenger side, bolted on the transmission, on your Ford F-250. Let's get started. Let's disconnect the negative battery terminal. I will actually disconnect it on both batteries, but I'm just going to show you it on this one because it's the same procedure. You just go to the other side and do the same thing. So take an 8mm wrench and loosen up the terminal. Pull it up, out of the way, set it aside somewhere where it cannot make connection with the terminal. And then, like I said, you do the same to the other battery. Now with the battery disconnected, if you look up on the passenger side where the transmission and the engine meet, you'll see the starter right there. The first thing I want to do is remove the two wires that go to it, or at least the main power wire. Towards the front of the engine, you'll see that there's a plastic cap. Go ahead and remove that. Now we can get our socket onto the main power wire over there. This is going to be a 15mm socket. Okay, there it is. Since we're there, let's unbolt the smaller signal wire also. 10mm socket for this one. There it is. Disconnect that wire. Looking up here, you'll notice that there's a bracket connected here, and that actually holds the main power wire harness bolted on here. So let's get a 13mm and loosen that up. Now you can push the whole harness forward. This will automatically disconnect the main power wire as well. Go ahead and pull this out of your way. Since we're in this area, you'll notice this is a 13mm headed stud. Let's go ahead and break this free. This is one of the mounting bolts for the starter. Looking down right over here, this is another mounting bolt for the starter, also 13mm. Go ahead and remove this one as well. There's one last one up on top over the solenoid, bolting into the engine, so the head of it is going to be on the starter side. It's also 13mm. I can't see it, you can't see it unless you have a mirror, but basically it's, well, at the top. So let's remove that one as well. Well, the only way I could get to this one, in my case, is with a stubby 13mm wrench. Again, impossible to see, but not too bad to reach. Looks like the starter's already wanting to let go, so I'm going to be careful so it doesn't fall. And also, if I support it, it might be easier for me to unthread this bolt by hand. Okay, there it is. There's the bolt. Now it's just a matter of pulling the starter backwards and finding the best place for it to come down and through, which I believe is going to be right here. There it is. There's your old starter. Now let's take the new starter, slide it up in the same way that the old one came out, and line it up with the transmission. There we go. Line it up with the transmission. I'm putting this lower bolt in so that it doesn't fall out. I want it to stay in here nice and secured so I can safely put the other bolts in. Obviously I won't tighten this one because the starter still needs to move around to line up everything, but if I get it close, at least it'll stay in place. I'm just going to keep moving up. I'm going to put in this stud here on the side. Of course, again, I'm not tightening it. I'm just threading it on so that it's there and lined up. And lastly, we'll take care of that top bolt that is very difficult to see, but with these two lined up, it shouldn't be as difficult to get that one started because it should be positioned approximately, because it should be positioned pretty much where it's supposed to be for those top threads. And there we go, start it right away. Since I'm up here, I'm just going to tighten this one and get it out of the way, make sure it's done. The torque for all of these is just 18 foot-pounds, so I can easily do that with my stubby wrench and some force. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. That's it right there. There's no other way that I can torque that, or even the stud on the side. The only one that I can actually torque is the one that sticks through the back of the transmission. Let's continue tightening. I have a slightly longer wrench. There we go. That's pretty tight. Last but not least, the one at the bottom. I want to make sure this one is nice and tight also. Now take your wires, and we're going to put the bracket on the stud, and at the same time this power wire is going to have to go on the main connector right there. The one thing you do want to pay attention to is to make sure that the main power wire is clean, free of any debris and corrosion. As you can see, mine is in good shape here. There's nothing to clean up. If yours is corroded and needs to be cleaned so it can make good contact, go ahead and do so now, otherwise the truck won't start. There we go. Put this nut on. Okay, that's nice and snug. On the main power wire, make sure you either install a lock nut or a locking washer, which should be supplied with your new starter. And then of course the nut itself. This new mounting nut is a 16 millimeter. Let's snug it up. Okay. Now when you tighten this, make sure you don't go too tight. Just make it snug, because okay, that's good. That stud is brass and it can break internally, and then you have to get a new starter again. Let's do the same with the signal wire. Slide it on. The new starter should come with a locking washer for it, as well as a new nut. Okay, make sure it's nice and snug. Now to reconnect the battery, go ahead and slide it on the terminal, make sure it's bottomed out completely, and then take your 8 millimeter wrench and tighten it up. Make sure it's nice and snug, but don't over tighten it. As long as you can't spin it, you're good to go. Now do the same to the other battery.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.